Hello everyone, thank you for watching my presentation on career path in teaching. I am Suzanne Tapas and I'm from Utrecht University. And 1.5 years ago, I headed a thematic peer group of the EUA that um, thought about career paths in teaching. It was not just me, but many people from many universities that you can see here. Now, the first thing to ask is why talk about career paths in teaching specifically? And we thought about that because the EUA issued a position paper in 2018, and also there was a Paris communique of the European Ministers of Higher Education that both acknowledged the role of quality teaching for building academic career progression and the importance of staff development and better recognizing teaching as essential to the academic profession. Now, this is not something that comes out of the blue. And also yesterday, you could see in the survey that teaching activities have been seen as important for an academic career, but they are much less important than research publications and attracting external research funding, for instance, are. And this disparity of esteem, that is what is central to our discussion, was central to our discussion. So we also thought to within our group to ask early stage academics, so PhD students and postdocs, what they thought about how they viewed teaching as a part of their career. And they said things like, the combination of both teaching and research is unrealistic for your work-life balance. It's especially hard in the beginning of your career. And there's a lack of mentor support for teaching. The course instructor is from another university, unavailable, difficult to communicate with. You have to do everything alone. They also said things like, we had a mentor, they gave us some advice, but mostly we were alone. We had to find out everything by ourselves. And that was a feeling that we meant that we throughout the people that we asked that was there, that teaching was a very lonely activity, and that combining teaching and research is unrealistic because in research there are very high expectations, and teaching is always takes second place. So on the other hand, there is a positive note. They said, in some cases, they said there's a community for the teachers of the same course, and we hold meetings and discuss our experiences. We share materials. It's very inspiring. And in teaching, I can communicate. So teaching is about communicating my research to students and others. And also, I'm very happy when I teach my students, fulfilled, full of life. Nobody can change that feeling. Most of the early stage academics that we talked to really liked teaching, but didn't think it was very important for their career. And they liked it better when there was a community of teachers or practice or open environment where they could discuss their teaching and also share their materials. I think that's very important for teaching. So in our thematic peer group, we had two challenges. So the respective value of teaching and research in academic careers is unbalanced, and we thought we wanted to have some advice on how to better balance it. And also teaching is often viewed as a very private activity with no widespread accepted criteria of quality. And the latter point is important because if you cannot measure it, it usually does not play a role in external recognition of promotion. So we had a few recommendations for institutions, and the first one was design balanced career stages, which are envisaged in an encompassing way and include all aspects of the academic profession. So don't have a career path in teaching only, but have a career path in teaching that has some other aspects in it as well, but also have career paths in research with an emphasis on research, have different career paths for different academics. And that ties in nicely with the EUA Dutch University Association conference on reward and recognition that says room for everyone's talent. There should be a new balance in recognizing and rewarding academics, and we should diversify and vitalize career paths so that in some academics, education can play a bigger role than research, but also the other way around. And we can also have this change across their career. So early career academics could be more oriented towards research, and later career academics could be more oriented towards education, or the other way around, depending on the academic. And some would be more in leadership roles, and others would be more in impact. That kind of balances should be in there. I think that's an important recommendation for and also framework that now the Dutch universities at least have adopted. And I also think many other universities are working on this. I know at least from universities in Denmark and Belgium that are working on this, and probably there are many more. The second recommendation for an institution is, if you want to teaching to be truly valued, you have to make a framework in which to talk about teaching expertise and teaching expertise development. And people have to be able to value it in some way. So there needs to be a task domain based framework for teaching expertise. And we had discussions in our group on how you could do that. We used a basic framework of Ruth Graham for that. That is used in many universities already. So we started out from Bix and Tang 2011, and we looked at what elements do we think are very central to the teaching profession. And then we came out at 4 elements. First is teaching delivery. How do you actually teach? How do you interact with your students? The second one is educational design. So how do you design the learning activities for your students? How do you make sure that your students learn the most when designing a course, for instance, or an educational activity? And the third one is student assessment. So how do you assess students on what they have learned, and how do you design exams, for instance, or other ways of measuring this? And the last one is a bit different, and that is reflection and self-development. So how do you evaluate all of these qualities that you have, and how do you then try to develop yourself further in certain activities of teaching? Now, there were some other things that we think should or could be included in teaching, but they're not so central to teaching, but more maybe more to leadership and research and other things that are connected to teaching. So there's research and scholarship of teaching and learning, coaching and mentorship, and leadership and administration and management in teaching. All of these things could also be elements that are, for instance, in research or in impact, I think. Now, if you do this and you ask people, you give people an inspiration document of what kind of evidence they can provide that they actually did develop themselves in these things, then it's important to think about how can they develop themselves. And the next slide, we have 3 different ways of developing something in teaching. So the first axis would be improving performance on a single task. For instance, getting better at teaching activities like assessing students, or like giving a lecture or something like that. Getting better at one single thing. That is, of course, an improvement, and that's a development of a teacher. The second axis would be adding more tasks to your repertoire. So being able to perform more tasks in more task domains. That means that you can assess students well, but also are good at giving lectures or other kinds of teaching activities, and also good at educational design, and you reflect well, for instance. And the third axis would be enlarging your sphere of impact. So it's very important to design learning activities, for instance, in a course. But if you're thinking about your sphere of impact, then you have a direct impact on your students. But you could also have impact on all students in the program, for instance, by designing an entire course or even a curriculum. And you can also have impact on other teachers, for instance, by coordinating a large block of courses or a learning line or things like that. That would be having more impact, so that's something you can develop yourself in as well. It's more connected maybe to leadership, but not entirely, because it's also content-based. Now, the third recommendation would be to devise methods and approaches for assessing teaching achievement. And We've just talked about how you can frame your teaching assessment, what kind of elements could be in it. It would also be wise to have some document to have examples on how teachers can actually prove that they or showcase that they have developed themselves in teaching. Um, and if you have them, then they have to be assessed in some way. Now, if we've looked at the survey yesterday, in research, we have a lot of metrics that are important. So many of the indicators of whether you're a good researcher are actually measured in metrics. But there's one, and it's very important to most researchers as well, and that is qualitative peer review assessment is also very important in research. And we think that is something that researchers are, uh, that academics are actually good at. So we think that this is something that is also a thing that we could use for teaching. So if you make a teaching portfolio and you have it judged by peer review methods, so that people that are actually knowledgeable of what you are doing and are doing the same kinds of activities as you are judging you, that would be a good way to review your teaching progress. We had two more recommendations. Institutions can put in incentive systems, so celebrate and showcase good teaching, valorize it in some way. And also they have to provide appropriate resources and structures for supporting learning and teaching, and to empower teachers to actually develop themselves. These were our recommendations for having a career path in teaching. Thank you for your attention, and I hope to see you on Tuesday.